Welcome back to the Power Lounge from Emerge and the Meteor. We are incredibly excited about the programming that we have for you this afternoon, and I cannot wait for this session. It is about women and the courts and what the courts mean in this particular election cycle. So are y'all ready? Okay. We have three incredible speakers here today. The first is, you know her from the convention the other night. She gave an incredible Bring the House Down speech. Representative Jasmine Crockett is here. She is a first-term congresswoman from Texas. She is joined by Fatima Goss Graves, the CEO of the National Women's Law Center and the person who can break down the courts better than anyone I know. And this conversation will be moderated by the wonderful Allison, CNN commentator and the CEO of the brand new, just launched Watering Hole Media. Take it away.
Thank you, Cindy. Hey, everybody. How's everyone feeling? Some good stuff happening, right? Oprah, maybe Queen Bee tonight. I'm willing it. I don't know. I don't have any inside scoop, but I'm willing it. A girl can dream, okay? Don't break my heart. All right, we're going to jump right into it because we have two magnificent speakers on a really, really important topic, the courts. So, Congresswoman Crockett, I want to start with you, all right? Our session is all about women in the courts. So, you have also been in the courts as a public defender. That's why she slays dragons in hearings, okay? And you've also talked about our vice president being a prosecutor for the second largest Department of Justice in the country, behind the U.S. Department of Justice. So you said, I know the kind of prosecutor she is, and she's the kind of prosecutor we longed for. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so first of all, it's great to see all these smiling faces. Give yourselves a round of applause. And I am doing my best with my voice, so bear with me. Listen, as someone who consistently walked into courtrooms anywhere from East Texas to all parts of Arkansas, federal courts, as well as state courts, I've dealt with all kinds of prosecutors. And there is a creed that prosecutors have. That creed is to seek justice and not convictions. But a lot of times, there are so many people that when they walk into a criminal courthouse, the only thing that the prosecutor is trying to do is seek convictions. They only care about statistics and making it look like they are tough on crime when they are actually harming our communities by pulling people into a system that will never, ever give them another chance. And there are people that should not be there. So I'm gonna give you a quick story and then I'm gonna stop. One of the things that first got me involved in politics was I represented a 17-year-old kid. The 17-year-old kid was in trouble because he had stolen candy out of the concession stand at his high school. In the state of Texas, it was considered a felony. It was burglary of a building. The attorney that he had before me put him on felony probation for stealing not even $15 worth of candy out of the concession stand. Ultimately, I ended up with him because he ended up on a probation revocation. Not because he picked up a new charge, but because he was a high school kid who had a mom that was working a regular job, actually multiple jobs, and she wasn't able to take off, pick him up from school, get him to his PO. And so they revoked his probation and they gave him a maximum sentence. Now you tell me how it makes sense that this kid walks around with the F on his chest. How does that benefit our communities? I was outraged. That is the type of prosecutor that we don't want. But unfortunately, in this country, we know that there has been a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. And so I wanted to make it clear that this was one of the good guys. She has always been on the side of right. And so I think that it's important that we delineate the types of prosecutors. This is the kind that is going to make sure that we are kept safe while also not just over-prosecuting our communities. And I thought that that was an important distinction that we make in this race.
Most definitely, most definitely. So Fatima, I want to turn to the Supreme Court. You know, traditionally, Democrats haven't paid in election cycles a lot of attention to the Supreme Court or court appointments in general. President Biden, though, has had historical appointments of black women to the courts compared to the whitewashed appointments of Donald Trump. We've also seen devastating decisions come down from the court and the lower court. And after a year of these grave consequences because of the overturning of Roe, can you give us a deeper analysis on the impact for the last couple of years that the judicial decisions have had on all of our lives?
Yeah, people don't often think about the courts in the way that they should, but courts are core to our democracy, right? We cannot be a nation that is made up of laws if people don't agree that they have trust and faith in what the courts are going to do, if they don't believe that the courts actually are going to be fair. Right? It is dangerous to have a court that is so far away from where the people are. And also in the situation that we have right now, it's dangerous to have a court that holds itself not accountable, right? We're in a situation where the court is really clearly seeing itself as not accountable to anyone, not accountable to Congress, not accountable to the people, not accountable to the White House, right? So that is a dangerous, very fragile situation, and it's in those situations you get decisions like the Dobbs decision, where they very casually overrule 50 years of precedent and ensue legal and public health chaos with total disregard for the fact that it's happening on women's lives. That's how you get them overruling 50 years of precedent around affirmative action. That's how you get them deciding, despite the fact that there's been 40 years of agreeing that experts in agencies should be the ones to decide what it means to have clean air, what it means to have healthy medicine, food in our stores. Rather than those experts in agencies, it should just be the courts. So you also can't disconnect what is happening with these courts that feel so unaccountable with where they are accruing that power. And it is with themselves to be the arbiters in service of a really extreme and out of touch agenda. And it's an agenda that's deeply unpopular and one that the people don't want.
So we know the issues, but we also want to talk about solutions. And really the Supreme Court and how political it has become was brought to a national stage, even a world stage, some could argue, after the Dobbs decision. And public polling shows that Americans have lost faith in the court. And our system is set up on the three branches of government. Without trust in the Supreme Court, what is our democracy? So, Congresswoman, I know you have advocated for a lot of Supreme Court reforms, which hasn't been a big topic of discussion up until the last couple of years. So we thank you for your leadership on that. So could you tell us, and this is really important after the immunity ruling also that we just had, where basically, okay, I'm not going to go on. But could you tell us, what can we do? What are some of the reforms that are available, and how do we actually have them happen in pretty short order?
Thank you so much for the question. So I do more than get into fights with Marjorie Taylor Greene, just so y'all know. So I am a member of the Court Reform Task Force. Myself, we've got Jamie Raskin on there, Madeline Dean, Adam Schiff, Hank Johnson, and we co-chair this task force. So there's three basic bills that we're pushing for. One is for term limits, and the term limits are not short. I mean, it's still a long time, but it ain't lifetime, right? So it's 18 years that we're advocating for. At least there can then be continual overturning of the court. We also are advocating to expand the court, and we need to expand it like right now, or actually like yesterday. There's a couple of reasons that we need to expand the court beyond just kind of the obvious. When we think about the fact, and I want to be clear about this as well, there is precedence for doing this. We have expanded the court 7 times in the history of this country, and the last time may have been about 100 years ago. And so the question before us is, can this court handle all of the litigation that is coming through? And honestly, they can't. And now they want to put even more on their plate with the Chevron decision. And so you can argue that, number one, our court cases are so much more complicated when we think about where we are going, when we're talking about AI, when we're talking about crypto, just thinking about the level of complexities of cases, as well as the fact that we have just grown leaps and bounds. And so you have more people that are filing cases. So it actually makes sense for us to expand the court so that we can start to meet where we are. It's kind of like a highway, right? Like when you start moving people in, you don't need the dirt road anymore. You need to expand and make sure that you got a highway to accommodate the traffic. That's what we're advocating for. And finally, the third piece is ethics reform. Have y'all heard of Uncle Clarence? Yes, child. Yeah, so, we need to make sure that he held accountable because he out here taking trips and doing all the things and seemingly also handing out some decisions for his homies in exchange for those fancy trips. And then we're not even going to get on Alito, and we're not going to get on either one of their raggedy wives. So, we need ethics reform. Yeah, I said it. We need ethics reform as well because there is no accountability. They look and they basically talk to the people that put them there, which is the Senate. The House, we don't really get a say. But the Senate put them in those spots. And they literally are like, yeah, no, thanks for inviting us to come in, but we'll pass, right? Like, what is this, right? Especially at a time in which we're getting decisions. What is so concerning about the court for me it's not just that they're not keeping up with the people, but they are not adhering to precedents. I'm like, what did I go to law school for? Because everything that I learned in law school, they are flipping on its head. So I'm like, y'all just made me have all these student loans for nothing? Because, y'all are not, this is not what it means to practice law when you literally are just doing whatever. And you brought up the immunity case, and then I shut up.
Come on, girl, keep talking. We got time today.
In real time, though, we should all be scared. I am out busting my ass on the trail because it matters just that much. I don't even get to go home from here. I'm going straight to Detroit because we have to win this election because there is danger lurking around the corner. And while we're talking about, yes, it's great if we win and we got to win, but also it is dangerous. We got to keep this up. They kept fighting for 50 years to take away our freedom. And honestly, I don't think that people should be convinced that their freedoms can't be cut. So if you think that you're safe, I promise you, you are not. So this is not about whether or not you agree with abortion or not. This is about whether or not you believe that we should live in the land of the free and opportunity. And so this Supreme Court has decided that it will ignore the Constitution. That is way bigger than ignoring a court case. That is dangerous. And they won't stop, especially if you start to look into some of the things that they are wanting to bring about in Project 2025.
Thank you. Yes. Not to mention that there will be more Supreme Court appointments for the next person to be the president. So not only are we living with this court, but we could actually change the dynamic of the court based on who wins this election. So we heard the three options for reform. Fatima, as an advocate, it's sometimes, you're slaying dragons over here, Congresswoman, but sometimes Congress struggles to get things done. We speak facts, right? Despite best efforts. So what do you think we can do in the immediate to help realize some of those reforms that she was just mentioning?
Well, first we have to make clear that this matters to voters in this country. I think that Congress isn't convinced that voters care about the court, and sometimes voters don't know. I mean, when you talked about how many judges that Biden-Harris put in place, they confirmed over 200 judges. More black women are now on the bench. Combined all other presidencies in the last 4 years. So when I think about the record, and that is the case even if you don't count Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman on the Supreme Court. Donald Trump put no black women on the bench over 4 years. So when you are comparing the opportunity to have a more diverse, a more reflective bench, that's one thing. Courts matter. But the second thing is, I don't think we should think small. We shouldn't assume and start this next Congress, especially if we're talking about a Speaker Jeffries, right? We shouldn't go into this next Congress and say not much is possible. More is possible. And at the very least, taking on this ethics problem of Supreme Court justices flying around in private jets to small islands with their donors, and the rest of us are supposed to act like that doesn't make a difference. That is bad, not just for that court, it is bad for our full democracy. If I don't have trust in the decisions that they make, if the people in this country don't trust the decisions that they make, what makes them think they're going to continue to follow them? There is no army commanding us to follow these Supreme Court decisions. To protect themselves, to protect our democracy, we must fix this court.
Thank you. So let's talk about something that has been discussed every night at the convention, and that is a real threat to democracy, Project 2025. I'd like to know from both of you how you feel like Project 2025 will impact the issues that we're talking about, the integrity of the judicial system, and what we should be doing to be responsive to those needs, particularly for women.
So here's the thing I want people to know who care about reproductive freedom, and I'm so glad that you pointed out, if you live in a state where you feel like your rights are protected, you might be sitting here and thinking, well, I'm sorry about Texas, but I'm going to be okay in my state. Project 2025 is the playbook to put in a national abortion ban, period. They want to revive a 19th century law called the Comstock Act to make abortion illegal everywhere in this country. They want to make medication abortion illegal in this country. They want to take steps to remove the LGBTQ community basically from public life. So they have an agenda that they have said out loud, not in dark corners. They have put it in their hundreds and hundreds of pages out loud. So we're clear. We should not be confused on what they do. What did Governor Walz say last night? When you have a playbook, that's what you intend to follow. I trust that. I trust that. So I think if you care about reproductive freedom, know that that playbook means a national abortion ban. And if you care about the well-being of families in this country, it matters that they say they're going to end the Department of Education. What will that do to public education in this country? What will that do to early childhood care in this country? It matters that they will cut programs that families need in this country. So at the same time where they are the party of the forced pregnancy, they're also the party that is cutting family support services. You cannot have it both ways, except they are trying to tell us what their plan is.
I know you can talk about Project 2025.
No, I'm gonna just add a little bit of context, specifically when you think about the court. So one of the things that is really dangerous to me about Project 2025 that I don't think a lot of people really ever get too jazzed about is the idea that our civil servants should have to now be loyalists. But it's not just our civil servants. As we talk about whether or not there will be additional appointments, I mean, if you think back to what happened with Trump in his 4 years, they stole one of the Supreme Court seats. The next Supreme Court seat, he made the justice step down so that he could have another appointment. And then we had the unfortunate death that took place. And then, of course, they changed the rules about how you do the appointment and how much time is left and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you are saying that the only people that are supposed to be in our system are loyalists, then that means that, number one, he's already said he's going to make two of them step down. Make two step down and then have two more come in with lifetime appointments, but they're going to have to be loyalists. And we have seen what we have gotten from the ones that didn't pledge their loyalty out loud. They have been loyal. That is how we got to the immunity decision. I mean, this is scary stuff. The fact that your lawyers walk into court and they argue that, yes, it is okay for a sitting president of the United States to go out and kill somebody and they should be immune from prosecution for that, we should all be scared. In addition to that, you combine that particular portion of Project 2025 with the idea of the Department of Justice. I'm going to make this real simple about it. The Department of Justice, while you appoint whoever is going to be the Attorney General for the United States, that is pretty much all you do. You appoint that person, but they are separate and they do what they do. That is how we ended up in a situation where a sitting president has a son that has been found guilty and charged with felonies in this Department of Justice, because our president isn't the one that controls it. That is not what they are doing. What they are doing is they are consolidating power within the executive branch. They are basically saying, we are going to get rid of democracy. The only reason the democracy works is because we do have checks and balances. The reason that they don't want you to know your history is because they want us to repeat it. They want to tear down our democracy. And listen, there is nothing perfect that is walking on this earth, including democracy. Democracy is about fighting for a more perfect union. And so that is what makes it beautiful. The fact that we have disagreements. You know, Ashley sits up here, but Ashley is always on the news, and listen, she good for dragging somebody as well. I do want to make that clear. But there is going to be an issue as it relates to freedom of press as well. As we are sitting here having this conversation, they don't want that. They want us to be in Russia, where his homie is posted up, where you only get what they want you to have. Can you imagine living in a continual news cycle of Fox News? I ain't trying to do it. I need people to have brains and are going to tell me some truth. So, I mean, these are very scary times. And we know that, listen, MAGA is a cult. That is what it is. And that is what they are trying to make all of us. And they also, finally, the last point that I'll make, because I'm tired of it, as I sit here as the child of a preacher, I don't want nobody telling me what Christianity is and what it ain't. Because what they trying to sell, that ain't what my God is about, to be perfectly clear. As far as I'm concerned, the Christianity that they preach about in Project 2025 is the same Christianity that they used to justify slavery when my ancestors were dragged over here on these boats. So, no, I don't want your Jesus, and I don't want your level of Christianity. And to be clear, we don't live in a country where we say that Christianity is the universal religion. We believe in freedom of religion. You are allowed to worship who you want to worship or not worship at all. But that's not what it's going to be. The entire basis of Project 2025 is in this bootleg interpretation of whatever they call Christianity. And I don't want no parts of it.
I don't want no parts either, sis. Okay, we are almost at time, so I am going to ask a question. Word on the street is the next president of the United States is taking the stage at the United Center, Kamala Harris. So for both of you, what do you want to hear from her tonight?
You know, she has been the most formidable voice in this country on reproductive freedom, crisscrossing over 20 states, the first person to go to an abortion clinic from the White House as a president or vice president. I hope she centers the voices of patients who've been in harm's way, of providers who've been doing this work under terrible conditions, of their loved ones, of people in the South who've been fearing criminalization. I hope she tells those stories too. And I also hope she talks about her long legacy of being a champion of care. You know, she was leading that work in the Senate. She led it in California. She's led it in the White House. I'm just thrilled.
Congresswoman?
You know, frankly, this election has nothing to do with qualifications nor policy. I'm just put it out there. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, seriously, it has nothing to do with qualifications. There is no question about who is qualified. What I want her to do is to connect with people on a deeper level, because somehow he has managed to connect with people to the point that they will follow him to the ends of this earth. And I know that she is a lot better person. The reason that I told a very personal story that made me cry in front of y'all was because I really wanted people to understand who she is and understand that she is like us, unlike them. They ain't like us. I don't really care how many times he sits there and tries to talk that talk from his mansion about how he understands the cost of high. I want people to know that she has lived this life. She has walked in our shoes, and she is the epitome of the American dream, because her parents were two immigrants that came over here with a dream. And I'm sure that neither one of them could have ever thought that their daughter that would be born to immigrants would come to the land of opportunity, the land of immigrants, and somehow rise to become the most powerful woman in the world. That is what this country is about. That is what the future is about, and that is what she will deliver. That is what I want people to know. I want them to know that this is somebody that's not there because they're trying to stay out of prison. This is not somebody that is there because she's looking out for rich folk. This is somebody that knows that there's another little Kamala somewhere that is being raised by two immigrants, and she needs to see that she can really realize what this country promised us, which was opportunity for all, not just for some. So I want her to give y'all the feeling that she gives me every time she calls me and pours into little old me, a random freshman who by all numbers should not be here in this seat in the first place. Because I wasn't born to parents that were in politics. I didn't go and work on the Hill. In fact, the first time I ever saw my predecessor's office was after I got sworn into Congress. That was not my story. But I decided to get in this fight because I believe that the people deserve better. I want her to show y'all that she is only in this fight because she knows that we deserve better and we can do better, and she is better.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Fatima Goss Graves, as our First Lady said, do something. We have it. We can win. Get out, register people to vote, get people to the polls. We can make history. Thank you.